Geronimo Stilton, The Wizard's Wand, the ninth adventure in the kingdom of fantasy. It all started like this. My dear mouse friends, you know who I am, right? My name is Stilton, Geronimo Stilton, and I run the Rodents Gazette, the most famous newspaper on Mouse Island. I'm about to tell you the story of another one of my magical journeys to the kingdom of fantasy. Yes, I am talking about the most beautiful place in the world, the home of fairies, gnomes, giants, elves, pixels, dragons, unicorns, and mythical talking animals. It all started like this. It was March 20, the first day of spring. That morning, I was supposed to attend a conference in Cedar Valley. I had to wake up super early to get to the airport in time for my flight, so I set my alarm clock, but it didn't work. Instead of being super early, I woke super late. I jumped in the shower, but the water was freezing. The hot water heater was broken. I got dressed quickly and left in a hurry, but a button got caught on the doorknob and my jacket ripped. So I went back inside to change. At that point, I was extremely late. I finally got outside and looked for a taxi. But of course, I couldn't find one. Luckily, I arrived at the airport just in time to board the plane, but the flight was terrible. I suffered from air sickness the whole time. I arrived in time, just in time, for the start of the conference, only to discover that it had been cancelled at the last minute with no notice. I returned home, only to discover I had lost my house keys and I was now locked out. When the locksmith finally let me in, I discovered that the house was flooded because I had left the shower running. That morning I went straight to bed, but I was so tired I couldn't fall asleep. So I turned on my computer to write a new chapter of my latest book. But I accidentally pressed the wrong button and erased everything. No, I squeaked. Why me? What a horrible day. As I sighed, how I wished I were in the kingdom of fantasy. There I could use my imagination to fix any problem. I finally fell into a restless sleep full of strange dreams. I dreamed and I dreamed and I dreamed and I dreamed. At midnight, I woke up suddenly, and because I heard bells jingling, I ran to the window outside. I saw a silver carriage being pulled through by the air by 13 silver unicorns. Aboard the silver carriage, I blinked. Wait, what? Were those really unicorns? And was the carriage really flying through the air by my house? A frog poked his head out of the driver's seat. Knight, he shouted, are you ready for a new adventure? Come on, we leave immediately. I shook my snout, still groggy from sleep. Had the cheese slipped off my cracker? The frog hopped out of the carriage and jumped in onto my window sill. It was my friend, Scribble Hopper. He's a literary frog and inspiring author and my official guide when I visited the kingdom of fantasy. Come on, Knight, he said again. Come urgently. Climb aboard. We are leaving. But I need to pack my bag, I replied. I'm not ready to go on a trip. It's the middle of the night. That's no excuse, Knight, Scribble Hopper croaked impatiently. There's a real emergency in the kingdom of fantasy. Why else would I have come to find you? Cease! Come on, our queen is missing. Blossom is missing? I shouted. Why didn't you say so? I'll be right there. I quickly got dressed and jumped aboard the silver carriage, which was hovering right next to my window. Welcome aboard, Knight, Scribble Hopper said. I have the honor of being the captain of... Before he could finish, the unicorns darted forward and took off on the wings of the wind to the kingdom of fantasy. Let's go! Moldy mozzarella. Aeroplanes were bad, but a carriage was so much worse. I thought I I might toss my cheese. As we raced through the air, Scribbleopter called out, "On the wings of the wind, the silver carriage will fly through the kingdom of fantasy, through the through the starry night." Well, I guess some things never change. My friend's poetry was still pretty awful. What a fright! I mean, flight! Scribblehopper pointed out to a chameleon wearing elegant blue uniform. "This is Prims, our flight attendant," Scribblehopper said. "She also has to be the cousin of Boils the Charmeleon." Of course, I knew she looked familiar. I had met Boils on some of my previous trips to the Kingdom of Fantasy. Next, Scribblehopper introduced me to a small bat carrying a guitar. "This is Batty Matty," he explained. "He will entertain us during the journey by singing and playing his guitar. Night, fasten your seatbelt immediately," Prims yelled at me. "And please remain seated during the duration of the flight." "Thank you." "Don't worry, I wouldn't even think about moving," I replied, my whiskers trembling in fright as the silver carriage veered to the right and left, driving downward and then soaring upward. Holy cheese! I felt so sick. "Faster, Blossom's faithful subjects!" Cribblehopper shouted into the wind. Spurred by his words, the unicorn galloped and faster. As the carriage bounced up and down, Prims wouldn't stop chattering in my ear. "Would you like a beverage, sir? Or maybe a slice of cheese?" Huh! The thought of food made me feel 100 times worse. Captain Scribblehopper is such a good pilot," Prims continued. "I don't think he will crash, do you?" "The carriage dipped suddenly, or maybe he will," Prims added. Then Batty Matty began to stun his guitar and sing. "We fly through the sky, but don't know why. The carriage swoops low and then goes high. No one knows if we might crash and fall to the ground with a great smash." "Please stop," I squeaked to the bat. "You might distract the pilot." "I'm not worried," he replied with a shrug. "If we crash, I have rings. Worst case, I'll fly. We'll prepare for anything, Knight," Prims added. Then she showed me a small parachute she wore under her uniform. "I never ever take this off, just in case." Cheese nibblets. Where was my parachute? I was about to ask when the carriage began to vibrate violently. "Turbulence!" Scribblehopper shouted. "Fasten your seatbelts, everybody!" Finally, we are a very long light of traveling. A golden spear appeared on the horizon. It was down, and I was still alive. Squeak! We were approaching the Crystal Castle. Scribblehopper announced. "We will land in approximately 20 minutes. Did you fasten your seatbelts? Crew, prepare for arrival." "Fasten your seatbelts, Knight," Prims yelled. "Come on, hurry!" But I stuttered, trying to explain that I had never unbuckled my belt. "No time to argue," Prims cut me off. "Just do it quickly and put your tray table back up. Do it, Knight." At that moment, the carriage lurched into a nosedive. "Ah!" I squeaked. "Help! I don't want to crash. I'm too fond of my fur." A second later, we landed in an enormous bump. Even though I was wearing my seatbelt, I tumbled upside down. "Hooray!" Scribblehopper shouted with joy. "We did it! You're still alive!" Prims patted him on the back. "My compliments on the landing," she said. "No one would know that you learned to fly only yesterday." What? I said weakly. Had I heard that correctly? "You learned to fly yesterday?" He nodded with satisfaction. "Yup," he replied. I was good, right? I turned as pale as a slice of mozzarella. What a way to start my adventure. Crystal Castle. A crowd of fantastical creatures immediately surrounded the silver carriage. It's the night, they murmured. Sir Geronimo of Stilton has arrived to save our queen and the Hindu fantasy. The carriage door opened and a snout, a cell I knew appeared. It was my hermit crab, Chatterclaws. I met him during my 7th trip to the Kingdom of Fantasy. Hi, hey, sir, What? Sit, he called. What took you so long? We have been waiting for you to arrive for hours. Now hurry up. What's your name? Get down from the thing, magic. I took my friend's claw and followed him inside the castle. Hi there, Santa Claus, I said. I missed you. How is everything in the Kingdom of Fantasy? He shook his head. What's your name? Knight, he began. It's not good. In fact, it's really awful. It's just the worst. Then he began to sob. Please don't cry, I told to the crab. Just tell me what's going on so I can help. A terrible thinga magic has happened, he continued. It was really awful and so scary. The queen has disappeared. I sighed my whiskers, shaking. I heard that. I explained. Scribblehopper told me that. But how did it happen? Who is responsible? Where will we find her? Luckily, someone else stepped forward. It was my friend, Blue Rider. Good to see you again, Sir Geronimo, he greeted me. I'm afraid we don't know where Blossom is or who is responsible. And there's more. One of the most powerful objects in the Kingdom of Fantasy has also disappeared. What? I squeaked. This was worse than the time I taught everyone over my birthday. It's true, Blue Rider. It's true, Blue Rider replied gravely. The Book of Thousand Spells is gone. If it falls into wrong hands, it could become a terrible weapon. He lowered his voice. The book contained all the magical spells of the Kingdom of Fantasy and explained that's why all the magicians and witches want it. Do you know the history of the Kingdom of Fantasy, Knight? I shook my whisker. Well, I'll tell you, Santa Claus volunteered. Many years ago, Watsy used some Tinga magics to build a great big Watchama kill it. Blue Rider cleared his throat. Excuse me, Santa Claus, but maybe it's the best if I explain, he offered gallantly. Many moon years ago, King Regal III built Crystal Castle, the heart of the Kingdom of Fantasy. He did this using 3 extremely powerful magical objects: the Book of Thousand Spells, the Crystal Spear, the Whispering Wand. The job was enormous. In fact, it took 330,000 years. The crystalline glooms helped the king by bringing him precious pure crystals from the Crystal County. These crystals are what make the castle sparkle so brightly. I will add the building of the Crystal Castle's photo at the end. This isn't just bad, it's really bad. When he had finished telling the story, Blue Rider sighed deeply. Do you understand why the situation is so serious, Knight? He asked. Just as these 3 items were used to build the Crystal Castle, they could be used to destroy it if they fall into wrong hands. Suddenly the door burst open and Elfin Messenger dashed in. His hat was on backwards. He was panting from running so fast, and the soles of his shoes were worn out. I gasped. Must give, gasped. You, gasped. Some news. Then he fainted from exhaustion. Santa Claus threw a bucket of stinky, dirty water in his face. Hey, you who? The hermit crab shouted. Wake up! We need to hear your message. The elf slumbered as he came towards the came to. I came from the faraway empire of the ruby dragons, he said softly. Then he fainted again. This time, Chatterclaws woke him by pinching his nose. Hello, he shouted. Come on now, wake up. We need to know what's going on immediately. The elf woke up again with a start. The crystal spear has been stolen. Then he fainted again. This time, Chatterclaws left him alone because he was too busy bringing his claws with worry. This isn't just bad, it's really, really bad. Chatterclaws moaned. Blue Rider had turned pale. The crystal sphere is the second most powerful object in the kingdom of fantasy, he explained solemnly. The spear makes it possible to see everything that happens in the kingdom while remaining unseen. But at that moment, the stork flew in through the window and collapsed on the ground in an exhaust heap. Hello, the stork whispered to me. Pretty feathers, queen of the pink storks, I have awful news. The whispering wand has been stolen. This time, it is Chatterclaw's turn to faint. Kaboom! He landed on the ground with a thud. Two hermit crab nurses came to help. First, they gently placed him on a stretcher made of algae, and they put on a seaweed compress on his forehead. Finally, they gave him a sort of concentration falcon. Chatterclaws woke with a start. What was that? He yelled. It really pinched. He looked down at the stretcher. Help! He shouted. What's wrong with me? Am I going to die? After we assured Chatterclaws that he was going to be just fine, Blue Rider told more about the Whispering Wand. It's the third most powerful object in the kingdom of fantasy, he explained. The creature who possesses it can use to cast any kind of evil spell or good spell. Then he lowered his voice. Knight, I must tell you a secret, he whispered. But you can't tell a soul. I placed a paw over my heart. The secrets of the kingdom of fantasy are safe with me, I speak. Rodent's honor. If someone possesses all three objects, the book of the 1,000 spells, the crystal spear and the wizard's wand, we are in big trouble, Blue Rider said. If these three items are used at the same time, they could make Crystal Castle disappear into thin air. Poof! Salty seaweed, Chatter yelled. This isn't just bad, it's really bad. Poof! The biggest secret in the kingdom of fantasy. The three most powerful objects in the kingdom of fantasy. The crystal spear and the whispering wand. Who stole the magical objects and how did they do it? And most importantly, why? I will add the photos of these pages in the end of this video also. The Queen's secret quarters. Each photo also I will add in the end of the video. Blue Rider gestured for me to follow him. Come on, Knight, he said. I will show you the Queen's secret quarters. We may found a clue there. He led me down a long corridor. I had never been down there before. First we entered Blossom's sleeping quarters. The canopy bed had drapes made up of delicious silk and lace made up of flavory weavers. Then he saw the bathroom. It had a crystal bathtub and shelves and a sparkling bottles of perfume. Blossom's closet was full of beautiful clothes. Each outfit was splendid than the last, and the smell of Blossom's sweet rose perfume was everywhere. I will add the Blossom's sleeping quarters photo also. Her royal shoes was made up of purest and sparklest crystal, and a miniature dragon guarded her chest of the royal jewels. He glared at me, and barely his teeth to let me know what he was doing his job. It is so sad to seeing all of these blossoms things and not having any idea where she was. What can I do to help? I asked. Blue
It feels so good when you are around. You got the smell, got the eyes, you coming falling down. I wonder if I can I stay by your side for life? Take my hand, go with